Welcome to the Economic Development Commission meeting here, and we're going to adopt the agenda from the last committee meeting. And do I have a motion to adopt the meeting?
A motion to adopt the agenda for the meeting.
A second?
A second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The minutes have been agreed upon. Open business forum. Anything?
Excuse me, Mr. Chair. Yep. You adopted the agenda. You need to adopt the minutes from the last meeting.
All right. So approval of the minutes from the last meeting in July. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from July 9th.
Second?
Second.
All approved, say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The minutes have been approved. So open business forum.
You have no one to speak tonight, Mr. Chair.
Okay. So now we're going to review the 2015 legislative agenda. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Jenny Faulkner, the Community Development Director for the city. And every year, the City Council puts together their legislative initiatives. It's much larger than this. What we bring to the EDC are just the economic development-related items. So if you want the full list, certainly let Skip or I know, and we can send that to you. It's also available, I believe, on our website. So I'm just going to walk through these, and some of them are lengthy, as you'll see, but I wanted to put them up here for anyone who may be watching. So we have three different categories that the council has for their legislative items. We have legislative priorities. There are 5 total on this list. 2 of them relate to economic development. And these are items that the council will take action on and be more take initiative, may go testify, may ask a representative or senator to propose legislation on our behalf. So these are items that we are more active in. Then there are supporting position statements. So those are statements if we're asked from someone, what does the city think about this, that we have positions on that. And then lastly, those are the monitoring statements. Those are statements where if something comes up that we're interested in, we're just kind of keeping an eye on it to see where it's at, to see if there's any legislation that would impact the city. So getting to the priority items, the first one on the list is preservation of the host community grant program. This was a grant program that went into effect last year, was the first year of it, and it affects cities that have active MSW landfills in them. Of course, Burnsville is one of them. And the purpose of this grant program is to help offset impacts to economic development from having a landfill in your community. And also, there has been some recent changes with the MPCA and the amount of waste that has to go to recycling, which in effect reduces the amount of trash that goes in the landfill, which is a good thing from that standpoint, but the city also collects revenues based on volume of trash that goes into the landfill, so that means reduced money for the city, reduced income. So this grant program was created to help offset that loss of revenue to the city and the economic development impact. So the key point here is that the city is certainly supportive of maintaining this grant program. We were a recipient, Skip, of about $875,000 over the two-year period last year and this year. So this is something the city is very supportive of. The next priority item gets to closing a Freeway landfill. Freeway landfill is located just south of the Minnesota River as you come over the river bridge from Hennepin County and to the west. It is a landfill that has not been completely closed to the MPCA standards, and so we support the MPCA in getting that closed for environmental purposes. It's an old landfill, so there could be some potential environmental impacts. And then secondly, it's an opportunity in our Minnesota River Quadrant area for potential redevelopment. If that landfill is moved and properly lined, there may be a potential for 100 acres of redevelopment opportunity right along the river as you enter Burnsville from the north. So we certainly support any economic development tools and any efforts from the MPCA to get that cleaned up properly. Moving on to the supporting position statements. This is a catch-all, but the regarding development and redevelopment, but the main gist of this is that the city opposes the elimination or limitation of existing tools that we have for economic and redevelopment. As you know, our tools are very limited. We're limited to tax increment financing, tax abatement, and really not much more than that. And so we are supportive of the creation of new tools, and we support state funding for economic development and workforce readiness. Any But what we've coming to see the last 5 years or so is that workforce readiness and employee availability is the number one thing that businesses look for when they choose to locate somewhere. How many employees are going to be able to fill the spots that I have to do this work? And so any programs that the state have that help foster employee development, employee growth, actual employees is something that the city supports. And certainly Burnsville is supportive of any bolder economic development programs as well as tax credits, those kinds of things that help businesses locate in the state. Another supporting position gets to land use controls. Of course, the city regulates land use through zoning. Oftentimes, almost every session, something comes up where the state tries to tell the cities, municipalities what they can or cannot do in regards to a particular land use. It's always a very particular land use. So the city of Burnsville opposes anything that would take away our local control. We have public hearings here. We are in very close contact with the constituents, the residents, and the businesses here at the local level, and we have a public process for engaging them and hearing their input, and we want to keep that authority here at the local level. So that's our position on that. Specifically, there's some provisions regarding daycare facilities. They are exempt from zoning. In-home daycares can set up in any residential home in the city right next to each other. You could have a whole block of them. There's nothing that the city can do about that. We have had an instance over the last couple of years where someone has set up a daycare in a home and nobody lives there. So it's clearly a business in a residential neighborhood. So we accept that we can't regulate daycares, but we really would like that legislation to be honed in a little bit so it cannot be just a business. Someone has to be occupying that home, so it is more of a home occupation and not a commercial operation. There's also been some discussion about the DHS, the Department of Human Services, licenses daycares for the state. And they're changing their rules and how they do things, and one of the last changes they did a couple of years ago was they started requiring city building code inspections and or sign-offs when daycare is located in our community. However, there's no statutory requirement or guidance for that in the law, so we are asking for clarity, and we support a position that is clear on what the law is. It takes city resources to go and do these things. It puts requirements on businesses. We just want to be clear on what the law says, and we would support clear expectations. Regarding broadband, our position is that we support the goals that were established in 2009 by the Minnesota Broadband Task Force that would make Minnesota a leader in broadband access, speed, and capacity. And then we also support statewide mapping of broadband, so this is something that we're just getting into at the state level, and we support efforts towards that. And then on the monitoring statements, some things that we always keep an eye on are, in general, state property taxes. We oppose the extension of state property taxes to additional classes and increases in taxation levels. We have reseller, which would be like a pawn shop or anybody who sells used goods. It's reselling of goods. We oppose legislation that restricts the city's ability of the police department to get access to customer data and property information that gets to being sure that we have information for stolen property and whatnot. So we want to make sure that we're able to continue to get that. Our transportation position statement gets to we support statewide transportation funding and local tools to the extent that we can meet our long and short-term needs. We all know that there's a huge gap there, so we need as much resources as we can put in that pot. Regarding maintenance, you may have noticed this yourself. MnDOT is responsible for all the state roads. They don't take care of their roads, maybe as you would take care of your property, or the county takes care of its right-of-way. And we sometimes run into challenges. Businesses want to know, how come Highway 13 isn't mowed? What's going on here? They only mow twice a year if they can get to it, at least once, maybe twice. We're asking that MnDOT meets property standards that the city adopts. They maintain their property like everybody else. And then also, Street Improvement District is a funding mechanism that would allow cities to adopt a special taxing district to create a street improvement fund as opposed to doing property assessments. So we support legislation that would allow cities to choose to have that ability if they choose to do so. Burnsville's not talking about that, but it's just another tool to have in the toolbox. And that's my short summation on the economic development legislative positions that are before the council. And certainly any input that you have, they watch the meetings, they will take your input and perhaps make changes this year or for next year too. We do this every year. So, Mr. Chair, I stand for questions.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions? I would just ask on the daycare. Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner John.
Okay. My question is are these things that are currently going through the legislative process statewide, citywide, or are they just things that we bring up every year?
Commissioner Johns, it just depends which one it is. So, for instance, the Freeway landfill, there's nothing active on it, but if things get going the way we want and the MPCA can reach agreement on closure, they may have something before the legislature for funding or cleanup funds, and certainly we would support that. So, tax increment financing comes up every year. It seems like every city has some kind of special legislation. We went there a few years ago, so it just depends, which is why we have this legislative position paper that the council puts together. Things come up at the 11th hour. It's hard to get a group of people together to say, hey, what do you think? So we try to be proactive. Here's our list. So as things come up, the council and staff are prepared to act accordingly.
Do these go to the legislature at all, or do they basically just get announced through the council?
The city council meets with our local state elected officials. That's coming up, I think, at their next work session even. And so the council goes through all of these with our local state representatives on this. And we're in constant contact with the county commissioners as well, so.
Does the daycare facility and licensing issue, you talked about people not owner occupying a home and then treating it as home daycare. Are they trying to run it as a commercial location, but it's supposed to be a home daycare? Is that really the issue that's
the
at
gist
hand?
of it, correct.
Okay.
It's a land use issue, but it does affect business.
It's a zoning issue mainly.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's exactly it.
Okay.
You had mentioned the county. I was just going to ask, does the county know about these positions? Are they supportive? Are they is there friction, or we don't know yet?
Actually, I don't know. I believe we share these with the county and the county commissioners. We don't have a separate meeting with them. At sometimes on different items that come up, the city may be at odds with the county on a position, depending on what it is. So there's certainly public information. I believe we do share them with county. Our county commissioner in Burnsville is Liz Workman. I believe she's
Sure.
aware of these. So.
I have a quick question about the landfill.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where the closest alternative landfill is that would supply the same type of service?
The landfill, I'll go back to this. Whoops.
Just that if you're closing one, I'm curious where the
Yeah.
next one is.
That's a good question, Commissioner. The Freeway landfill is already closed. They stopped taking garbage, I want to say in about 1995, 1996, something like that. But the issue here is that the MPCA does not believe it's been closed to appropriate standards, and there is some potential for some long-term environmental impacts. That's what the concern is of the MPCA and the city. So we're working with the landowner to try to get some kind of solution on that. But it is already closed.
Okay, I get it.
It's a good question.
Go ahead.
Do you know what that would entail to clean that up, that landfill, or is it?
There's a couple different options that are being looked at. There's one option that would provide an impermeable cap or cover on it, so to keep any water from penetrating through it and going through the garbage and then ending up in subsurface of the soils and water tables. There's another option to move it, to scoop it all up and put it in a completely enclosed landfill. So there's different options that are out there to get this taken care of. We've been talking with MPC and the landowner for several years. There may be several more years before we get anywhere, but we at least have a position on it, and we know where we all need to be with this to make sure things are done in an environmentally friendly way, and perhaps have economic development. That would be the best case scenario for the city. Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay. Do we need to approve this legislative agenda, Skip, or?
You do not, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on your agenda, Commissioners, is an update on the Greater MSP Initiative. The Greater MSP Initiative is basically a public-private partnership. It is in existence to help retain and attract businesses to a 16-county metropolitan area. The City of Burnsville has been a partner in this initiative almost from day one. We contribute $25,000 per year to the initiative. So over the last 4 years of its existence, we've contributed $100,000 to the initiative. That is out of a budget of Greater MSP of $6 million. Our contribution for 2015 is in the proposed budget for next year that will be approved by council next month. Greater MSP has done a tremendous amount of marketing, not only nationally but internationally, and they are basically attending trade shows both nationally and internationally to promote the region. Prior to the inception of Greater MSP, the metropolitan region, in all honesty, from a national site selectors perspective, we were flyover land. We would bring site selectors here, and they would consistently tell us, you have a great story, you need to tell it to people. And that is exactly what Greater MSP is doing, is telling that story to people. Give you a little update. The first line of this chart is basically the calendar year 2013 versus the calendar year 2012. The reason for that is we get the updates for a year in June of the succeeding year. So this past June, we got all the results for last year's efforts. Last year, they had 20 wins. They classify a win as a new business attraction. The year before, they actually had 35 wins. So over the last 2 years, they've attracted 55 new companies to the region. Drilling it down to our level in Burnsville, we're going to jump ahead 1 year, and what you're going to see is the difference between this year versus last year. Last year, we looked at 15 leads for the city of Burnsville. This year, we've looked at 7. In the way the Greater MSP works is they will send out leads to either all of the folks in the 16-county region, or they may send it out to specific areas of the region if that's what the business is looking for. So if the business says, I want to be in the northern end of the metropolitan area, they won't send it out to those of us down here in the southern end. As you can see from the chart, last year, out of those 15 leads that came across our desk, we were actually able to submit possible properties or buildings on 3 of them. Unfortunately, none of them actually resulted in a site visit to any of those properties last year, and obviously none of those resulted in an attraction of a business. This year, out of the 7 leads we received, we were able to actually submit a property for one of those. Interestingly enough, the lead was for a company that is already in Burnsville that is looking to expand. That is still in the process. They are still considering a possibility in Burnsville. They are also considering possibilities outside of Burnsville. Not counting the one that is already in Burnsville, we had no site visits other than that, nor have we had any business attractions for this year. When you look at what's going on and you look at the results, let's say for Burnsville, to a certain extent it's a dim picture. But what you need to realize is that the marketing efforts, as I said, are putting our region on the map with these site developers and site selectors. It's our belief that if we attract new businesses to the region, even if they're not attracted to Burnsville, we do gain something out of that. Those new companies are potential new sales targets for our existing businesses. They're also potentially job opportunities for our residents. So what we look at it as, this is a supportive effort of the marketing of our region, and it's a supportive effort of trying to attract new business and retain business in our region. So we have a tendency to approach this from a regional perspective, less than as a Burnsville perspective. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would certainly stand for any questions or comments about the efforts of Greater MSP over the last couple of years.
Sure. And I'll make a few comments because we have discussed this over the last couple of years. Clearly, the quantitative results haven't been very measurable, given what Skip just told us. But if someone opens a business in Lakeville, for example, and there's 30 employees, they're going to come to the Burnsville Center, they're going to go to the restaurants, et cetera. I would ask Skip, are the connecting communities still contributing that $25,000? Because not everybody in Dakota County was contributing,
That's
based on some conversations over the past 2 years.
correct.
The 25 grand is fairly immaterial given the budget of the city of Burnsville, so that's a good thing, but we want to see some quantitative results. Are the neighboring communities contributing to this project?
Mr. Chair, first of all, the county itself also contributes. The county contributes $100,000 a year. Of the 10 cities in Dakota County, 5 of them are contributors and 5 of them are not. Interestingly enough, Dakota County ranks number 1 out of the 16 regions for the percentage of their cities that are contributing partners. There are some counties in which there are actually no cities that are contributing, and it's just the county that contributes.
So if we had the same chart, would Lakeville show some successes? Or would Apple Valley show some successes?
None of them have had any successes last year. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. I believe Apple Valley had one the year before.
Okay.
Lakeville has not had any successes. Lakeville was in the running for a couple of businesses last year that actually ended up in the city of Shakopee. So they stayed in the basic geographic area.
So everyone's results are pretty comparable to the Burnsville results then?
If our surrounding communities, Commissioner, yes. And as you can see, they had 20 wins last year. That's 20 companies that came to a 16-county region. So obviously there was, well, in the case, a couple went to Shakopee, so there was probably about 17 cities that actually got a win last year.
Ms. Skip, can you shed some light on the strategy for 15? Obviously, economy's different, politics, a lot of differences from the previous year. Can you shed some light on what Greater MSP is going to try to do in 15 to try to continue its effort to draw businesses to the area?
I think what you saw, Commissioner, is I think it was an ability of Greater MSP to actually drill down deeper sooner into the request. So while less requests came across our desk, they were more targeted on businesses that were definitely looking for this area of the region, whereas the previous year and a year before that, when they were still in their infancy, they had a tendency to more blast out the request. And you would see a request and you would realize when you read through them that the business was actually really wanting to be in Hennepin or Ramsey County. But we were still getting the, so they're just doing a better job of actually clarifying and drilling down on the request. And one of the things to realize about the request is the fact that we can't respond to most of the requests is actually very positive, because the vast majority of Greater MSP's requests are either for large amount of acreages, 20, 25, 30, 35 acres, are large vacancies, 100, 150,000 square foot buildings. We are very fortunate. We have neither. So the fact that we are so developed already somewhat precludes us from being able to respond to a number of requests that would come out. And if you look at the chart that I had in your background, you'll see most of those were for a huge amount of space and or acreage, and we just do not have.
So the question to this commission and the council would be, is this $25,000 spent wisely, given that maybe we don't have the wherewithal to even service these companies if they actually had some interest in Burnsville? I mean, would that be a fair question?
Certainly, Mr. Chair.
Would you say this is a good investment for the city of Burnsville, personally?
I believe that council has reviewed this every year, and I believe that council has decided that, and again, it's the supporting of the regional effort. Is council is looking at this and saying we want to be supportive of a regional effort to keep our region on the marketplace around the country. These efforts in other areas have been very successful over time, and it's kind of, you know, as the tide rises, all the boats kind of come up at the same time. So I think the emphasis has been on the regional support versus necessarily worrying year to year, are we personally getting a win? If the region is getting a win, we're all getting a win.
Yeah, from my opinion, and I think I asked this question a few meetings ago, I would ask, can we give more than $25,000? Because I see this as, if Burnsville can serve as the hub for larger industrial areas to support them, that's only going to make our economic development much stronger here. Question for you, though, is, and I know I'm seeing many of the proposals are for large areas. Is there anything that us as the commission or that the city can consider or should consider doing, obviously not putting you on the spot, but ideas to think about to drive interest, for greater interest in Burnsville? Is it about taxes? Is it about zoning? Is it about anything else in particular that we might want to make a focus for the commission in 2015 to review, something that, that might be worth reviewing? Now, I'm not necessarily saying we need to make huge changes, but that's my very long.
Probably, our Commissioner, one of the issues that we do face is a number of our buildings are older, and a number of our buildings have between 12-foot and 14-foot ceiling heights. Standard ask now is as much as 28 to 32. So if there were ways in which we could assist those businesses in renovating their properties, in many cases it could mean demolishing them and building new structures, that would be certainly something that would help out. I would not want to paint the picture that in general we're not competitive. I mean, we are bringing businesses all the time, but there are some things such as ceiling height that does cause us problems. Unfortunately, we can't make more land, so we can't create a 50-acre area that we can promote in. Some of that will occur over time in the MRQ. There, we'd have to look at the assembling of multiple smaller parcels to create those larger tracts. That could be something else that the commission could certainly long-term take a look at.
Thank you.
Any other comments? And I don't think we have to make any opinions or motions on this.
No,
It's
as
informational.
Ms. Faulkner said, our council watches your meetings. They will certainly take into consideration some of the comments that you have made.
Well, I think this initiative is huge for the MRQ long term, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. But as you've mentioned privately and in front of this commission, we're fairly occupied as a community right now, and there's not a lot. You can't build more land here. You can't develop more when everything's developed. And I think the $25,000 is fairly immaterial. I hate to use that word when it comes to government spending, but I don't see how, because of the immateriality and the promotional aspect long term, that it's a bad idea. I don't know if anybody would want to comment on that.
I agree very much. I think it's totally worth the money.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Yep. So now open to business.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The other item on your agenda for an update is a little bit more locally based. That is the Open to Business program. Again, the Open to Business is a partnership of the Dakota County CDA, the Community Development Agency, and the cities. The cost for this program is $130,000 a year, of which the CDA pays half, and then the cities contribute the other half. Burnsville's portion of the contribution is $7,500 per year, and that also is included in our proposed budget for next year. This program basically provides free consulting services to any business in Burnsville or any resident of Burnsville that is looking to create a business. I should say any business in Dakota County or resident of Dakota County. All of the cities have indicated that their contributions are in their budgets next year, and the CDA actually has already adopted their budget for next year, and the contribution is in there. To give you a little idea of the results this year versus last year, first of all, I'll focus on Burnsville, and then we'll focus on the county results. Last year, the consultant worked with 14 clients in Burnsville, and last year was the first year of the program. This year, that has actually jumped to 32 clients. These are actual people that the consultant has sat down and had discussions with. And in some cases, they are ongoing discussions if she has helped the client, through either a phase that they're in and or even a startup possibility. The types of services that she provides is if you are looking at a startup, she will help you put together a business plan, or she will convince you that you do not have a business plan and that you probably don't want to open the business because you do not have a business plan. And when you look at the number of new businesses, the numbers are low, but one of the things to remember is in many cases she has done our residents a very good service by, as she's led them through the process, they have realized that their idea is not going to become a viable business. And before they've mortgaged the house and everything else, they've decided not to move forward. She will work on a business plan. She will work on marketing. She will give basic business guidance. The Open to Business program is part of the Metropolitan Community Consortium of Community Developers. They have the ability to make some loans, so they will make loans, and they will facilitate loans with banks. Our consultant has sat with some of our business people and have walked them through the types of information that you need to have available as you approach your bank for a loan, the types of questions that you're going to have to respond to. A small business owner, as you all know, may be very adept at their product or their business. That does not mean that they're adept at sitting in front of a banker asking for that loan. So she has helped many of those. They will also do gap financing. So if a business's bank is not willing to do the whole loan, MCCD will step in and in many cases do the gap financing. They are willing to take a little bit greater risk than a bank. They're not as concerned about making a return on the loan. They will make some risky loans. For example, they're not afraid to make loans to restaurants. Banks typically do not want to make those loans, so they're providing that type of a service. We did actually, last year, we did have a couple of loans given to our businesses. We did not have any loans so far this year. And last year there were actually 2 new businesses that came out of the program. This year we've had 1 new business come out of the program. She has actually had more clients this year that are existing businesses than businesses looking to start up. On the county side, same 2 years, you'll also notice that more clients this year across the county than last year. And in the county, you can really see, last year she worked with 124 people looking to start up a new business. This year, that was down to 95. But this year, she worked with 81 existing companies throughout the county versus 30 last year. So the emphasis this year has been much more to the existing businesses, helping them with whatever type of assistance they needed. Again, a small loan this year, not quite as much loan activity as last year, and 5 new businesses across the county versus 4 last year. The surprising thing, I think, to all of us at the city levels is we did not expect to see the jump up in clients from last year to this year, because last year was first year, new, everything else. We figured we'd get a lot of people then. I think what actually happened was, because of all the promotion, existing businesses became aware of the fact that there was this free consulting service available to give them help. So, and in fact, we ended up with more clients this year than last year, which is obviously a positive. And having said that, Mr. Chair, I certainly would stand for any questions on the Open to Business or comments.
Anybody have any comments or questions?
I just would say this is awesome. I mean, it's a great investment for Burnsville, and it's definitely bringing stuff in. It's a great program to have here.
Thank you. We have been very happy with it. Yes.
Is it more informational, or is it the opinion of whoever's the representative of the city of Burnsville or Apple Valley or Egan or whomever? Because my only concern here is, I mean, we've had a lot of great entrepreneurial stories in the last 50 years. FedEx, the founder of FedEx got a D+ or C- at Harvard when he presented the business plan and grew it to what we all know to be FedEx. And so my only concern is that I don't want someone giving opinions on what the marketplace will do. I want someone giving information on what the current status is of the marketplace. And that's my only concern on this project, because they're not consultants, they're not being paid, and so I don't want someone giving opinions when the market reaction is uncertain, but the information is absolutely factual.
Mr. Chair, do not confuse this with SCORE. Our consultant is paid. It is her full-time job.
But by the government, not by the person coming to seek that help.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
She herself has started 3 businesses, and she does not give an opinion on the viability of their product, but she walks them through the putting together of a business plan. And in many cases, when they walk through that and attempt to answer the questions of the business plan, it becomes obvious that their idea or product may not be viable in the marketplace.
As long as they can make, as long as it's more informational and more quantitative versus subjective, I guess I don't have a problem. Again, going to the immaterial component of the $7,500. But that's the only pause that I would take in this project. But
Well, I can
don't know
tell
if
you
anybody
that
else would comment
most,
on that.
Yeah, the most unique one I heard of is we did have someone who wanted to open up a chocolate chip cookie and a chicken retail establishment. We never did figure out what the combination was.
Delicious.
And as she walked them through the process, they couldn't really figure out what the connection was, nor could they figure out how they were going to market this concept. That's kind of what she looked at.
that's not. I mean, that's the marketplace for decide. The marketplace decides that, not. You know, see what I'm saying? That's the only concern that I have. That's all.
I understand, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So, and I generally agree that the position shouldn't be to say, you know, great idea or terrible. Better for the person to decide, figure that out for themselves. But you know, there's going to be a certain element of here's what I think is going to be the information you need to develop a business plan, and there might be some subjectivity and certain things they factor over others. But so I generally agree, though, and we don't want to turn it into someone providing just general opinions.
And again, our consultant actually would drill down even deeper than that.
Sure. No, I
What she would be asking is she would be asking a prospective business person to go home and think about what is your market, how will you reach out to your market, what tools will you need to reach out to your market. And in many cases, she will find the prospective business person coming back saying, I don't know what my market is, I don't know how I would market to it, and I have no idea what kind of tools I would use. As you walk through that process, it eventually becomes evident to the possible business person that this probably is not a viable concept.
Or if it is a good idea, at least they can come back and answer that question when they do make that leap.
Exactly.
The question for you, Skip, is has similar to the previous discussion about greater MSP. In this consultant, has the consultant sat down with you and city staff and identified any particular areas in the business development process where there are roadblocks related to city ordinances, city requirements that are challenging to meet, create a conflict, barriers to entry that we might be able to consider looking at in the next year? I don't know if there are any. Just thought I would ask because you know, the consultants' dialogue with prospective business owners is actually pretty valuable intelligence for us to understand what are business owners looking for to build their company up.
Excellent question, Commissioner. She has actually not brought to our attention a situation in which she has had a business that is either ready to start up and/or a client that is looking to, say, do an expansion and has hit a roadblock at the city level. Does not mean that roadblocks don't occasionally get hit, but she has not brought to us a client and said, when I deal with the businesses on an ongoing basis, I'm noticing this or that has a tendency to be a roadblock. It just has not occurred. I can't comment if it's occurred in other cities. I don't know.
That's good.
And we pay her $7,500 a year, correct?
We pay MCCD $7,500.
And they employ her.
They employ her.
Everybody in is that a county initiative, or is that more metro?
No, the price tag for Dakota County is $130,000.
For the whole project.
for the whole project. The county is paying half, the contributing cities, the cities are paying the other half. Out of that, they're paying her salary, her benefits, her
She's
travel.
assigned this county, and
She only does
and
this.
the revenue from her is 130.
Yes.
So we can speculate what her salary is, but I'm just trying to gauge as to the expertise of the person that's providing this service. That's all. So okay.
If I can add to that, MCCD, it is a metro-wide organization, so she's not the only consultant that they have. They have many other business consultants and experts that are part of their team.
Is that a co-op?
I don't
that-
know how they're established. You can, if I can direct you to their website, it's Metropolitan, is it Metropolitan or, yeah, Metropolitan Consortium of Community Developers. We can email it out to you too. Anyways, we've met with these folks. We interviewed them before we decided to move forward with this project. So Lori is our person, but she has resources beyond her. If something comes up that she is unfamiliar with or needs help with or doesn't know, there's a lot more resources than just her. I just want you to be aware of that. And we'll send you the link to their website too, so you can.
I think that would be
you can
helpful
check.
because
And they do work for a bunch of other cities in the metro area. So.
perfect. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you, Skip. Any updates?
Mr. Chair, in your packet, I did provide with you a list of the activities relative to our STEM initiative. I would only draw your attention to a couple of them. And this covers a 4-month period of time instead of a typical 2-month because we obviously did not meet back in September. Back in August, the city of Burnsville did participate in a statewide activity that was a statewide FAM tour. DEED, the Department of Economic Development, brought in 8 national site selectors. And those 8 national site selectors, one stayed in the metro area and the rest of them fanned out to the 4 quadrants of the state. And the idea was to showcase the state to these national site selectors, but more importantly was to get their input of what we should, what types of things we should be doing to be more attractive to them. This is the second year the state has done this. It's the second year that the city participated in it. In both years, we actually hosted the site selector when they came to concentrate on Dakota County. They gave us some very, very good ideas of what we should be doing. One of the ideas, as Ms. Faulkner's already alluded to, is workforce. Number one question for companies right now when they're looking for relocation and or expansion opportunities is, will I have a workforce? Incentives are falling farther and farther down the list of first things they start worrying about. It's basically workforce, and can I employ the people? That is becoming one of the number one areas. The other interesting thing that came out of that FAM tour was virtually all the cities in Dakota County have AAA bond ratings. We almost take it for granted. It's kind of what we think we have to play. National Site Selector told us that's huge. That is huge to businesses to know that the whole county and all the cities have AAA bond ratings. That is something you should be really promoting. We're so used to it because all of us have it that we just kind of accepted it that's kind of the thing that everybody has. So it's those types of tidbits that we get out of these types of endeavors that are beneficial to us. A couple of other things I would point out. Last month, the city, the chamber, and the Burnsville High School had their real world ready career day. It's the second year in a row we've done this. We had 150 students participate. They were given a presentation by a local business owner in Burnsville who was a graduate of Burnsville High School. He actually owns Rock Hard Landscape. They then spent some time down in the gymnasium where we had 20 businesses and 4 colleges that were doing booths and showcasing. And then this year, something new, we actually took them on bus tours of a couple of companies. We did a healthcare tour and we did kind of a transportation tour. And they went out and got to look at the companies, see what they do, and then heard from the employees of the company what are the job skills necessary in the industries related. And the idea was to really get out that idea of these are the jobs that are out there and these are the skills necessary. We did also attend MNCAR, which is the Association of Commercial Brokers, does a show every year. We attended the show this year, worked the floor, walked around. City of Burnsville is probably going to join MNCAR next year, and we will probably look at exhibiting at that show. It's a way to showcase ourselves to all the commercial brokers. And then we did partner with the state, Life Science Alley, and the city of Elk River, and we exhibited at the Medical Device and Manufacturing Show a couple of weeks ago. It's one of the largest shows in the country, and it's purported to be one of the best shows. Typically, they will get between 1,400 and 1,600 participants coming through in a 2-day period of time. And we basically all partnered with a booth and showcased the state and the two cities and the whole endeavors of what we're doing here for that. It, quite frankly, is an opportunity for us to participate in a show that we could not afford to participate in on our own. And if there's any questions on the update on the STEM initiative, I'd certainly entertain those also, Mr. Chair.
Anybody have any comments? Or? Has the commercial vacancy rate gotten better in the last year and a half, 2 years in the city of Burnsville?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Yeah, it is slowly coming down. Typically, we will run 1% to 2% higher vacancy than on the other side of the river. So we are maintaining that difference between the two sides of the river, and ours is coming down, as is theirs.
Is that without prices fluctuating at all?
I can't actually comment, Mr. Chair, on how the prices have fluctuated. That's not something that we get involved with. That's typically between the building owner and the leasee.
Sure.
And I actually haven't asked the commercial brokers what the prices are going for lately.
Sure. Anybody have anything else? Anything else on your agenda, Skip? I don't see anything.
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Well, I would ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
And the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.